Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nobody, and we are back in the Untrained Unprofessional Garage. And I wanted to do a final little wrap up on the Hungarian AK-63, my very first AK build project, because I've done a couple of things to it since the last video that I said that it was done. Well, and I guess it wasn't, so sorry about that. But it's pretty much done at this point. Now, one of the first things that I did, and it was something that I brought up in the last video, was I wanted to put a little bit better of a crown on this barrel, and I used my Brownell's hand chamfering kit, and I bought a 30 caliber guide for it. And one of the things that I definitely noticed while doing it by hand was that it kind of like did like a little bit of a chatter, or I don't know, it made like little lines, in the crown, that I had to use a 45-degree brass polishing tool. Would it be a polishing tool? But crowning tool with, with some compound on it, and I took those little chatters out, and now it looks pretty good. The other thing that I wanted to do to this was on the basically the feed ramp. The round initially makes contact with the trunnion right here. Well, the very first time I took this out shooting, I noticed that on some ammo types, specifically like this, that's a Tula, like this Wolf Poly that has this kind of open tip kind of quality to it. I had a couple of the rounds would actually get stuck on that little, it was a very slightly chamfered edge on the trunnion, but it would just get jammed in there and deform the tip, and then I would have to re-rack it, in order to get a chamber. And I kind of figured that probably wasn't the best for accuracy. And I also thought, well, if it's doing it on that bullet type, what is it doing to rounds like this little soft tip? Now, it does put a little kind of dent in the lead. For short distances isn't going to make a big difference, for accuracy, but I still wanted it to be as good as it possibly could. So I took a Dremel and I came in from the magazine side, and I dropped that chamfer just a little bit lower, just to help it feed a little bit better. And now it is making, oh, why do I keep picking up the same one? It is making just a slight little impact on the tip now, but nowhere near what it was. After using the Dremel on it, I did take some polishing cones and just hit it, to make it as smooth as I possibly could. The other thing was this lower fore end right here. If you remember in the last video, I had a slight back and forth kind of movement. Well, I wanted to tighten that up just because it was bugging me. What I used to fix and tighten this up was a little bit of two-part epoxy, in this particular situation, JB Weld. And I used a little bit of black dye that I had from my Acroglass kit. And I just kind of lumped it on all around the back of the fore end, from top to bottom, around where it fits in underneath the trunnion and the receiver, and I filed it to fit. And I wanted it to fit super, super tight. Matter of fact, to get this off, this little lever is actually quite a pain to do. I have to use something to pry it off, so which is basically what I wanted to do. And as you can see on there, that there is a very small ring of the JB Weld. And the nice thing is that you don't notice it when it's on the rifle. It kind of blends. It gives more of that aged look that I really wanted to have with this project. After I was done filing it to fit, I had gone into some of the wood, and it was definitely something that needed to be restained, so I hit it with the American Walnut stain again, and then used some of the charred wood accelerator to blend it all in nicely. Now it's one of those things that you really have to look for to see what was done to it. So the last thing that I really wanted to take care of was this leather cheek piece. And if you remember, it was one of those things where it had a little bit of slippage back and forth, just because I didn't account for the stretching of the leather, or that I would probably need to stretch the leather, or I just didn't pull it tight enough. So what I decided to do, and I could have either remade the piece or trimmed off a little bit, but I didn't want to remove anything by the holes. I wanted to have some material strength, I guess, or at least that was my thought process. But part of the kit that I got from D4 Guns came with this little neoprene kind of material that has an adhesive backing on it, and you can use it as padding under the leather. And I don't know where to get something like this, but I really haven't looked for it. So if you're trying to find it, I don't know. But eventually I do want to find something, because I'm sure this isn't going to be my last underfolder. So deciding to use this, I basically decided that I wasn't going to alter the leather cheek piece that I had already created. So I cut the stitching and undid it, and then I used black stitching this time. I put my cheek piece on there. Now I did have to cut it down a little bit because I wanted to have a taper on the front and back. And then I just restitched it, and I did do a, where is it? I also did another, I don't know what to call it because I'm not a leather craft kind of guy, but I went through and about midway, I kind of like went under the holes again and pulled it super tight, kind of like a midway point to really keep the leather in place, to keep it tighter, if that makes sense. And then I continued on. So now it doesn't move at all. It doesn't move under recoil or anything. So really happy with that. The only thing that I'm still trying to wrap my noodle around, and that's with the underfold or stock. I have a little bit of play in it that I kind of want to figure out how to take up, and I don't know if it is something that I could maybe do like a sleeve or tack weld or whatnot, just to kind of take up some of that little bit of movement. And that was partly because I kind of didn't know what I was doing when I was fitting it in there and getting it on, and I probably just removed too much from the wrong place. So just an FYI. I'm not perfect, neither is the gun, but I'm trying. But I also want to be open with you guys to know that mistakes do happen and you do learn from them, just like I'm definitely learning from this. So after making all those adjustments, I did go out to the range, and I wanted to see if I could notice any differences in accuracy. The unfortunate thing is with having to wear glasses for up close looking and reading and all that kind of stuff, looking through that rear sight is really, really blurry for me. And it's, well, not only is it blurry, but I almost kind of see multiples, like 2, 3, 4 different rear sights, and I kind of just pick one. So like when I was shooting this, the Wolf Poly, that was my first shot, and then I had the thought process of, okay, let's just kind of pick one that kind of looks the best, that I was comfortable with, and just go from there. And yeah, this is at 25 yards, and no, I'm not happy with, my grouping or anything like that. But a couple things going on there. One, blurry target, or blurry sight picture, and two, this dot, I could barely make it out, and trying to get it lined up consistently, I was having a really hard time. So, but I was happy that it was basically on one line. I just had a little bit of side-to-side movement, and then I tried to duplicate it with the 2 Lamo, but again, the eyeballs are not what they were. So it's kind of a hard thing about life, is that things changes and that you got to figure out how to adapt, and or just say, oh well. I was not a happy camper on Sunday coming home dealing with this, so go figure, such is life. I guess I got to shoot more dots and scopes, which I can do. I don't have a problem with scopes at all, and dots. Anyway, that's the final wrap up on this, guys. I do appreciate you watching and all your comments and questions and suggestions and whatnot. Hopefully you enjoyed the next video, and you have a great day.